The 7th Fatui Harbinger is finally here and is our first look to the new upcoming stellar reactions that will be introduced in Snezhnaya. SANDRONE is an on-field stellar conduct DPS with a playstyle similar to Nouvellette where they spam a lot of charged attacks. However, it is uncertain whether her playstyle will change as new stellar characters release in the future going into Snezhnaya. SANDRONE's best artifact set will be her tailor-made set Disenchantment in Deep Shadow, as it provides a huge stellar conduct damage bonus and 16% free crit rate. SANDRONE herself ascends with crit rate as well as Cryo Resonance giving 15%, meaning she gets quite a bit of crit rate for free, which can narrow some weapon options. For main stats, SANDRONE wants either attack crit, or replacing one of the attack main stat pieces with EM main stat, depending on whether you're using attack buffing characters. Cryo damage goblets are useless for SANDRONE since stellar conduct damage, similarly to lunar damage, does not scale off of elemental damage bonuses. For substats, you want to prioritize crit rate, crit damage, and ER, then followed by attack percent and EM. SANDRONE's stat goals include reaching at least 2000 attack to max out her stellar conduct damage bonus, 69% crit rate, 130 to 150% or more ER, then as much crit damage and EM as you can. Her signature weapon, Keyblade, is her obvious best in slot, offering attack percent and 48% stellar conduct damage. It also has a crit damage main stat which pairs perfectly with SANDRONE's crit rate ascension, making sure that you don't overcap on crit. Not too far behind in terms of damage is Mavrika's signature weapon, as it has a huge base attack stat with a small but meaningful crit rate main stat. It also provides even more attack percent and crit damage as well, making it a very strong second best choice behind her signature weapon. Other decent options include Wolf's Gravestone and Tidal Shadow, both providing huge amounts of attack percent if you're not running SANDRONE with any attack buffers like Nicole. However, if you are running SANDRONE with attack buffers, then Mailed Flower is also a pretty decent option since it has an EM main stat and a secondary stat that provides attack percent and more EM. If your team consists of 2 Liyue characters, then Lithic Blade is actually a pretty solid option too, but only with at least 2 Liyue characters. Otherwise, the buff it provides just isn't enough to justify using it. Honorable mentions like Dea, Varka, and Navia's signature weapons can be used as pure stat sticks, however you should be careful not to overcap on crit since those weapons provide a lot of it. Another honorable mention is also Ito's signature weapon, which provides a huge crit damage percent main stat, while the secondary effect isn't too useless. For talent priority, SANDRONE's damage is pretty well split between her charged attacks and her burst, unlike Nouvellette. You want to prioritize her normal attack talent the most, then her burst. As for her skill, you can level it up if you so please. SANDRONE's core teammates as of now include the newly buffed C1 Yae Miko and Chi-Chi. If you have these 3 characters, they're basically inseparable, since C1 Yae and Chi-Chi both provide stellar conduct damage bonus. However, if you don't own Yae Miko, your other options include buffed Beidou at C6 or Fischl paired with Nicole to trigger overload to get the attack buff from Fischl's Hexerai effect. Speaking of Nicole, she can be a good 4th slot option for SANDRONE teams along with Bennett, Iansan, and Escoffier. If you somehow do not have Chi-Chi, buff Diona at C6 works in her place. However, both buffed Beidou and Diona at C6 can also work as 4th slot options if you already have Yae and Chi-Chi, and the other 4th slot options mentioned earlier are being used in other teams. Other teammates include Benefa if you want to mix stellar and lunar reactions together, or pairing SANDRONE with the newly buffed Wriothesley and Cyno, although this isn't recommended since Wriothesley and Cyno are both on-field DPS characters like SANDRONE as of now, and SANDRONE in those teams are practically dead weight, purely to enable stellar conduct. If you're a Wriothesley or Cyno main who wants to use them now that they're buffed, sadly you're gonna have to wait until a proper off-field stellar conduct support is released unless you want SANDRONE as dead weight in the team. It's just not that recommended. SANDRONE's constellations aren't really that great to be completely honest, but if you're a die-hard fan of SANDRONE and really want to vertically invest in her, then your first best option is to get her signature weapon before any of her constellations. C1 alone is kinda meh and shouldn't really be your goal unless you plan on getting C2. That's all for this quick SANDRONE guide. Good luck on all your pulls, or congrats if you're watching this because you already pulled her and want to know how to build her. As of now, SANDRONE is definitely still not at her highest potential, but considering that Hoyo buffed older characters to at least make them use the new stellar reactions tells me that this will be better than whatever the heck lunar reactions were. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in my next guide.